Your name is your identity. But what happens when it becomes a reason for someone to doubt your worth? Jasmine Carter, a 25-year-old recent graduate with a degree in marketing. She's ambitious, talented, and ready to take on the world. Jasmine Carter sat at her desk, staring at her laptop screen. The glow of the monitor illuminated her determined face as she scrolled through yet another job listing. It had been months since she graduated with honors in marketing, and despite her impressive resume, the job offers were nowhere to be found. She sighed, running a hand over her braids, and leaned back in her chair. The walls of her small apartment were adorned with motivational quotes and vision boards, reminders of the future she was working so hard to build. "You'll get something soon," her best friend Keisha had told her just that morning. "You're too talented to be overlooked." Jasmine wanted to believe her, but the rejection emails were starting to wear her down. Each one felt like a tiny blow to her confidence. Still, she refused to give up. She had worked too hard, sacrificing sleep, social events, and even weekends, to let a few setbacks define her. Just as she was about to close her laptop for the night, an email notification popped up. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the subject line. Invitation to interview, marketing coordinator position at Crestwood Media. Crestwood Media, one of the most prestigious marketing firms in the city. Jasmine had applied on a whim, never actually expecting to hear back, but here it was, her chance to prove herself. She immediately called Keisha, who squealed with excitement. "I told you, this is it, Jazz. This is your moment." The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Jasmine spent hours researching the company, practicing her interview answers, and picking out the perfect outfit. She chose a sleek black blazer, a white blouse, and tailored slacks, professional yet approachable. She wanted to make a great first impression. On the morning of the interview, Jasmine stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her blazer and smoothing her braids. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of all she had accomplished. "You belong there," she whispered to her reflection. "You've earned this." The Crestwood Media office was everything Jasmine had imagined, sleek, modern, and buzzing with energy. The reception area was filled with the hum of keyboards and the occasional ring of a phone. Jasmine approached the receptionist, a young woman with a bright smile. "Hi, I'm Jasmine Carter. I'm here for the 10 a.m. interview," she said, returning the smile. The receptionist's eyes flicked to her clipboard, and for a brief moment her smile faltered. She looked back at Jasmine, her expression shifting ever so slightly. "Oh," she said, her tone polite but noticeably cooler. "I was expecting someone else." Jasmine's stomach dropped, but she forced herself to stay composed. "Well, I'm here," she said with a light laugh, though the comment stung. The receptionist nodded and gestured toward a row of chairs. "Please have a seat. Mr. Daniels will be with you shortly." As Jasmine sat down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The receptionist's reaction had been subtle, but it was enough to make her question herself. Was it my name? She wondered. Did they assume I was white? She pushed the thought aside, reminding herself that she was here for a reason. She had the skills, the experience, and the drive to succeed. Nothing, not even a biased receptionist, was going to take that away from her. Jasmine sat in the sleek, minimalist waiting area, her portfolio resting on her lap. She glanced at the clock on the wall, 10:05 a.m. Mr. Daniels was running late. The receptionist's comment still lingered in her mind, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the interview questions she had rehearsed. Finally, a tall man in a tailored suit emerged from a glass-walled office. He introduced himself as Mr. Daniels, the hiring manager, and gestured for Jasmine to follow him. His demeanor was polite but distant, and Jasmine noticed he barely made eye contact as they walked to the conference room. The interview started off well enough. Jasmine answered questions about her experience, her passion for marketing, and her long-term career goals. She spoke confidently, highlighting her achievements and the innovative campaigns she had worked on during her internships. But then something shifted. Mr. Daniels leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "You know," he said, tapping his pen against the table, "we usually hire candidates with more traditional backgrounds, but your resume is interesting." Jasmine's heart sank. She knew what he meant. Traditional backgrounds. It was code for "not like you." She forced a smile, determined to stay professional. "I believe my experience speaks for itself," she replied, her voice steady. "I've worked on diverse projects and have a proven track record of delivering results." Mr. Daniels nodded, but his tone remained dismissive. "Of course, but this is a very competitive role. We'll keep your application on file and let you know if anything comes up." The interview ended shortly after that. As Jasmine walked out of the office, she felt a mix of anger and disappointment. She had given it her all, but it was clear that Mr. Daniels had already made up his mind before she even walked in. That evening, Jasmine sat on her couch, her laptop open but untouched. The glow of the screen cast a faint light across her face as she stared blankly at the wall. The interview replayed in her mind like a broken record. Mr. Daniels's dismissive tone, the way he barely glanced at her resume, the subtle but unmistakable implication that she didn't belong. She replayed the receptionist's words, too. "I was expecting someone else." At the time, Jasmine had brushed it off, chalking it up to nerves or a simple misunderstanding. But now, in the quiet of her apartment, the comment felt heavier, more loaded. It wasn't just a passing remark, it was a reflection of something deeper, something systemic. Jasmine opened her laptop and began to research. She typed in phrases like racial bias in hiring and discrimination based on names. The results were both validating and disheartening. Study after study confirmed what she had suspected. Job applicants with ethnic-sounding names were far less likely to get callbacks, even when their qualifications were identical to those with white-sounding names. One study even found that applicants with names like Emily or Greg were 50% more likely to get an interview than those with names like Jamal or LaToya. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, her chest tightening. It wasn't just about her. It was about countless others who had been overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated because of their names, their skin color, their heritage. She thought about her parents, who had worked tirelessly to give her opportunities they never had. She thought about her younger brother, who was still in high school and would soon face the same challenges. Was this the world they were living in? A world where your name could be a barrier before you even had a chance to prove yourself? Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. She wasn't going to cry over this. She wasn't going to let it break her. Instead, she picked up her phone and called Keisha. "Hey, Jazz," Keisha answered, her voice warm and familiar. "How'd it go?" Jasmine hesitated, then let it all out. She told Keisha about the interview, the receptionist's comment, the studies she had read. "It's not fair," she said, her voice trembling. "I worked so hard, and none of it mattered because of my name." Keisha sighed. "I know, Jazz, it's messed up, but you can't let this define you. You're amazing, and the right opportunity will come along." Jasmine hung up, feeling a little lighter. Keisha was right. She couldn't change how people saw her, but she could control how she responded. And she wasn't going to let this experience silence her. The next morning, Jasmine woke up with a knot in her stomach. The weight of the previous day's experience still lingered, but something had shifted overnight. She wasn't just angry or hurt anymore, she was determined. She wasn't going to let one bad interview define her. Instead, she decided to use her voice to shed light on the issue. She sat at her desk, her laptop open, and began typing. She didn't know where to start, so she just let the words flow. She wrote about the interview, the receptionist's comment, Mr. Daniels's dismissive tone, the sinking feeling of being judged before she even had a chance to speak. She wrote about the studies she had read, the systemic bias that so many people faced, and the frustration of knowing that her name, her identity, could be a barrier. But she didn't stop there. She wrote about her parents who had sacrificed so much to give her opportunities. She wrote about her younger brother who looked up to her and would soon face the same challenges. She wrote about the countless others who had been overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated because of their names, their skin color, their heritage. When she was done, she read over her post, her heart pounding. It was raw and honest, and it felt like a piece of her soul on the screen. She hesitated for a moment, her finger hovering over the post button. What if no one cared? What if people judged her for speaking out? But then she thought about Keisha's words. You can't let this define you. She took a deep breath and clicked Post. Within hours, the response was overwhelming. Her LinkedIn notifications blew up with comments, messages, and shares. People from all walks of life, friends, strangers, even professionals in her field, reached out to share their own stories of discrimination and to offer words of encouragement. One comment stood out. Your name is not a red flag. It's a badge of honor. Keep shining. Jasmine felt a surge of emotion, relief, gratitude, and a newfound sense of purpose. She wasn't alone, and she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for everyone who had ever been made to feel like they didn't belong. A few weeks after her LinkedIn post went viral, Jasmine received a message that would change everything. It was from Dr. Taylor, the founder of a startup called Inclusive Media. Dr. Taylor had read Jasmine's post and was deeply moved by her courage and honesty. She offered Jasmine a position as a marketing strategist with a focus on creating campaigns that celebrated diversity and challenged stereotypes. Jasmine accepted the offer, and within weeks, she was thriving in her new role. The team at Inclusive Media was passionate, supportive, and committed to making a difference. For the first time in her career, Jasmine felt like she belonged. She wasn't just another employee. She was a valued member of a team that shared her vision for a more inclusive world. One of her first projects was a campaign called Names Matter. The campaign featured stories of individuals who had faced discrimination because of their names, along with powerful visuals and a call to action for companies to examine their hiring practices. The campaign went viral, sparking conversations about racial bias and inspiring other organizations to take similar steps. But Jasmine didn't stop there. She knew that representation mattered, and she wanted to create opportunities for others who had faced similar challenges. She started a mentorship program called Shine Together, pairing young Black professionals with experienced mentors in their fields. The program quickly gained traction, with dozens of participants and mentors signing up. At the end of her first year at Inclusive Media, Jasmine stood in front of a room full of mentees, her heart swelling with pride. She shared her story, the interview at Crestwood Media, the moment she decided to speak out, and the journey that had brought her here. Your name is not a red flag, she said, her voice strong and clear. It's a reminder of where you come from and the strength you carry. Don't let anyone dim your light. The room erupted into applause, and Jasmine felt a surge of emotion, pride, gratitude, and a deep sense of purpose. She had turned her pain into purpose, and in doing so, she had created a platform for others to shine. As she looked out at the faces before her, Jasmine knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but she was ready to face it, one step at a time. She had found her voice, and she wasn't going to stop using it. Jasmine stood at the front of the room, her heart pounding as she looked out at the sea of faces before her. It was her first time speaking at a diversity and inclusion conference, and the room was packed. She took a deep breath, gripping the edges of the podium, and began to speak. Your name is not a red flag, she said, her voice steady and clear. It's a badge of honor, a testament to your heritage, your strength, and your story. But for many of us, our names and the color of our skin can feel like barriers. They can make us question whether we belong, whether we're enough. She paused, letting her words sink in. The room was silent, every eye fixed on her. She continued, sharing her story, the interview at Crestwood Media, the receptionist's comment, the studies she had read about racial bias in hiring. She talked about the anger, the frustration, and the moments of doubt. But she also talked about the turning point, the decision to speak out, the overwhelming support she had received, and the opportunities that had come her way as a result. "I'm not here to say that everything is perfect now," she said. "I'm not here to tell you that the world is fair or that the system will change overnight. But I am here to tell you that your voice matters. Your story matters. And when we come together, when we share our experiences, support one another, and demand change, we can make a difference." She looked out at the audience, her gaze sweeping across the room. "If you've ever been made to feel like you don't belong, I want you to know this. You are not alone. And you are not defined by someone else's ignorance or bias. You are defined by your resilience, your courage, and your ability to rise above." The room erupted into applause, and Jasmine felt a surge of emotion, pride, gratitude, and a deep sense of purpose. She stepped away from the podium, her heart full, and joined the audience for a panel discussion on diversity in the workplace. As she listened to the other speakers, Jasmine thought about how far she had come. The interview at Crestwood Media had been a painful experience, but it had also been a catalyst for change, not just for her, but for others as well. She had turned her pain into purpose, and in doing so, she had found her voice. Thank you for being part of this important conversation. If you believe in the power of storytelling to fight racism, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to Black Voices Matter for more inspiring stories.